A man is stretched face down across a stone block in a Roman court. The leather straps bite into his wrists. Pulling his arms taut, the officer drops his arm, turns on his heel, and runs to find his commanding officer. Because, in the 1st century, the phrase civis Romanus sum, there are assassins waiting in the ravines along the road. Knives hidden in their cloaks, bound by an oath to not eat or drink until Paul is dead. Festus sits on the raised marble judgment seat. Paul stands on the cold floor below. The governor looks down at the prisoner and asks the fatal question, "Are you willing to go up to Jerusalem and stand trial before me there?" Paul knows exactly what is waiting on that road. He knows the governor is trying to trade a human life for political capital. He looks back at Festus. He does not argue theology. He does not plead for his life. He does not ask for a divine miracle to strike the governor blind. He plays the final card. In Greek, he says, "Epikalumai Caesara." In Latin, the phrase is, "Provoco ad Caesarem." I appeal to Caesar. The scratching of the scribe's reed pen stops. The judgment hall goes dead silent. The governor pales, turns, and whispers frantically with his legal counsel, because those words trigger an absolute, irreversible legal mechanism. Once a Roman citizen invokes the right of provocatio, jurisdiction is immediately ripped from the local governor's hands. No provincial official can touch him. No local mob can reach him. The case must be heard by the emperor himself in Rome. Festus turns back around. His trap has failed. You have appealed to Caesar. To Caesar you shall go. This is not a desperate plea for survival. I am a Roman citizen is not merely a statement of geography. It is an impenetrable, invisible shield. And binding a Roman citizen without a proper trial, it is a calculated checkmate. Years earlier, Paul wrote a letter to the believers in Rome, explicitly stating how desperately he wanted to visit their city. He wanted to bring the gospel to the absolute epicenter of the known world. But Rome is far. The journey is brutal. The roads are crawling with bandits. And the Mediterranean Sea is treacherous and expensive to cross. So he makes the empire pay for the ticket. He gets a heavily armed imperial guard. He gets a spot on a state-funded grain ship. He gets free, heavily secured transport from the dusty edge of the province directly to the capital of the empire. He uses the legal machinery of the state to sponsor the greatest mission trip of his life. But there is a profound paradox hiding in the cargo hold of that ship. While Paul is actively using his earthly citizenship to stay alive and reach the capital, he is secretly writing letters that will completely dismantle how his readers understand loyalty, borders, and belonging. And he does it by deploying one specific, politically charged word. Picture the irony of the situation. Paul is sitting under house arrest, guarded by an imperial soldier, utilizing his Roman citizenship to stay alive, while using the rough scratch of a reed pen on papyrus to completely subvert the concept of empire, is an offense punishable by death. Most people read the story of the early church and assume its expansion was purely a matter of spiritual endurance. He is writing a letter to the believers living in Philippi. Philippi is not just another provincial city with damp cobblestones and noisy markets. It is a fiercely proud Roman colony. It is populated by retired military veterans who carry bronze coins stamped with the emperor's face, and who breathe the heavy smell of Roman incense burning at the local shrines. They dress like Romans. They speak Latin. They possess the ius Italicum, the highest level of civic privilege, meaning they pay no tribute to the empire because their soil is legally considered an extension of Italy itself. Their entire identity is anchored in their imperial passport, and right into the middle of that immense civic pride. In Philippians chapter 3, verse 20, Paul drops a linguistic bomb. He writes, "But our citizenship is in heaven." The English translation feels abstract, almost spiritualized, like a promise about where we go when we die. But the word Paul uses in the original Greek is the noun politeuma. It comes from the root word polis, meaning city, and its political weight in the ancient world is staggering. A politeuma was not just a legal status. In the Greco-Roman world, It specifically referred to a colony of foreigners living in a strange land, who banded together to maintain the laws, culture, and allegiance of their home country. If you were part of a politeuma, your job was not. We picture Paul as a rogue, traveling preacher in a dusty cloak, armed with nothing but the Hebrew scriptures and a radical message about a resurrected rabbi, to assimilate to the local culture. Nor was it to pack your bags and flee back to your capital. Your job was to bring the culture of your homeland to the foreign soil you were standing on. Paul actually uses the verb form of this word earlier in the same letter, in Philippians 1:27. When English Bibles read, "Let your manner of life be worthy of the gospel," the Greek verb is politeuomai. He is literally commanding them, live as citizens of a different empire. That root changes everything about how you read the letter. When Paul tells these fiercely proud Roman veterans that their politeuma is in heaven, he is completely rewiring their allegiance. He is telling them they are an outpost. Heaven is not an evacuation plan. It is a headquarters. Your citizenship is not a ticket out of the world. It is the mandate to bring the culture of the true king into the exact spot where you are standing. Paul is actively using Rome's roads, Rome's courts, and Rome's boats. But his allegiance is tied to a throne that makes Caesar look like a temporary middle manager. But there is a final, crushing paradox waiting at the end of the road, because when the ultimate citizen of this new empire finally reaches the capital of the old one, the empire does exactly what empires always do. We assume he survived the shipwrecks, the angry mobs, and the assassins, simply because God kept miraculously intervening to bail him out. The Appian Way stretches toward the capital. Heavy boots hit the sun-baked basalt stones. Paul walks into Rome. He holds the passport of the elite. He carries the highest legal status available to a human being in the 1st century, but he does not walk in wearing the heavy, bleached wool of a patrician. He wears iron. The chain bites into his right wrist. The metal is cold, heavy, polished, smooth by the constant friction of movement. The other end wraps securely around the thick forearm of a Roman Praetorian guard. The empire that paid for his passage across the Mediterranean now secures his physical perimeter. He is permitted to rent a house. He pays for it himself. And for 2 whole years, he sits under the looming shadow of Palatine Hill, the absolute seat of imperial power. He cannot walk to the synagogues. He cannot stand in the crowded marketplaces. He cannot book passage to Spain. But soldiers rotate in. Soldiers rotate out. 4-hour shifts. The most elite military unit in the known world. The personal bodyguards of the emperor, taking turns chained to a Jewish tent maker. Rome thinks they are guarding a threat. They do not realize they are attending a seminary. Paul speaks. The guards listen. They rotate out. They return to the barracks. And divine providence was certainly at work. But if you look closer at the book of Acts, at the specific words Paul chooses when he's back, they talk in the mess halls. They carry the strange stories of a crucified and resurrected king directly into Caesar's own household. The chain is not a quarantine. It is a broadcast tower. The state tries to silence the movement by isolating its most vocal leader. But the isolation simply forces him to pick up a pen. He dictates letters. Black soot ink stains the rough. Woven papyrus. The scrolls are rolled tight, sealed with hot wax, and carried out the front door. To Ephesus, to Colossae, to Philippi, to Philemon. The words slip right past the iron spears of the Praetorian guards. They travel back down the precise, tightly fitted Roman roads. They sail out on the massive, state-protected Roman grain ships. The very infrastructure designed to project Caesar's glory is now carrying the blueprints of a kingdom that will eventually bury him. But Paul's earthly advantage finally runs out. The political winds shift. The invisible shield of citizenship shatters. Tradition tells us the mad Emperor Nero eventually gives the final order. A heavy sword falls on an execution block just outside the city walls. Blood soaks into the Italian soil. A Roman citizen is legally beheaded. The passport expires. The tent maker dies. But the letters survive. And the uncomfortable mirror those letters hold up to our own lives has not cracked in 2,000 years, is literally against the wall. You see a completely different dynamic playing out in the shadows of the text. We do not carry small, wax-sealed bronze diplomas in our pockets. Most of us will never face the terrifying shadow of a Roman centurion holding a bone-tipped whip, or the crushing, damp darkness of a subterranean cell in Philippi. But we carry our own version of the toga. We carry blue passports stamped with gold foil that let us walk through border checkpoints without a second glance. We hold heavy paper degrees with embossed seals that open thick glass doors to air-conditioned boardrooms. We have economic safety nets, social standing, and cultural capital. We wear the invisible, highly coveted armor of the modern world, and we spend massive amounts of energy trying to acquire these things. We hoard them. We use them to build walls. We are taught by our culture to view our advantages as a fortress, a carefully constructed barrier designed to keep the chaos and the pain of the world out. The world tells you that leverage is entirely for your own protection. You climb the ladder so the rising water cannot reach your feet. But look at the inverted economy of the New Testament. Look at how Paul handled the ultimate unearned advantage of his era. He did not use his Roman citizenship to build a comfortable life. He did not use it to retire in a quiet seaside villa on the Mediterranean coast, drinking imported wine and avoiding the violent political tension of the capital. He weaponized it. He took the very thing the secular world valued most and used it to smuggle a completely subversive message directly into the heart of the empire. You start to see the massive, violent machinery of an empire being quietly bent to serve a kingdom. Paul's citizenship is not a historical coincidence. He turned his legal immunity into an armed escort. He turned a state-funded grain ship into a cross-continental mission vehicle. He took the empire's own basalt-paved road system and used it to lay the foundations of a kingdom that would eventually outlast Rome itself. He realized something that shatters how we view our own success. Your worldly advantage is not a shelter. It is a supply line. The man who held the highest legal status in the known world willingly absorbed the beatings, the shipwrecks, and the cold iron chains, entirely for the sake of people who had no legal standing at all. He used his elite Roman passport to pull Jewish peasants, Greek merchants, and foreign slaves into a new reality where those earthly categories suddenly cease to exist. If you possess social capital, if you have a voice that people listen to, if you hold the modern equivalent of a Roman passport, the kingdom of God does not ask you to apologize for it. It does not ask you to feel guilty about the tools currently sitting in your hand. It asks you to spend them on people who do not have them. We are a species obsessed with building safe, insulated lives. We want the peace of the empire without the sacrifice of the cross. We want the absolute protection of the Pax Romana without the danger of living out the Politiuma. But there is a final piece to this puzzle, a pattern that echoes through every step of Paul's journey, pointing directly at the tension you might be carrying right now. It is the tactical engine that drove the gospel from a forgotten province to the absolute center of the known world. A man is strapped to a stone block in a bloody courtyard, and a single question freezes the executioner's hand. A mob screams for a Jewish preacher's death, and the heavy hand of Roman law forces an army to protect him. A city magistrate throws a beaten man into a dark cell and is forced to publicly apologize in the morning light. A corrupt governor tries to trade a life for political favor and triggers a legal mechanism that reaches the emperor's throne. An empire builds a massive fleet of protected grain ships and inadvertently sponsors a cross-continental mission trip. A Praetorian guard chains his arm to a prisoner's wrist and carries the blueprint of a new kingdom directly into Caesar's household. A heavy sword finally falls on the Italian soil, and the letters of a dead man continue to dismantle the powers of the world. Same empire, same unstoppable God. But maybe the part that stays with me most is that cold iron chain, 2 whole years sitting under the shadow of Palatine Hill. His right arm physically bound to the elite guards of the empire. He could not walk to the markets. He could not board a ship to Spain. He was stripped of his mobility. Jesus was not offering a generic path to survival. The real question of Paul's ministry isn't just how he managed to stay alive. It's this: but he did not view the chain as a quarantine. He viewed it as a captive audience. He turned the very instrument of his restriction into a broadcast tower. If you are in a season where you feel restricted by your circumstances, where the boundaries of your life feel more like a prison than a platform, Philippians is a place to sit. Your politima is not confined by your geography. Heaven does not need you to escape your current reality to be effective. It does not ask you to wait until the chains come off to start speaking. It asks you to bring the culture of the king into the exact, restricted spot where you are currently standing. If this opens something in you, subscribe. Leave a comment. Even one word helps. Share this with someone who feels trapped by the limitations of their current season. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. And may the God who takes the paved roads of an empire and uses them to build an eternal kingdom walk with you through your own borders, and turn the very thing that seems to be holding you back into the exact vehicle that carries you forward. The stones beneath his chest are still warm from the Jerusalem sun. Above him stands a Roman centurion holding a flagrum, a short whip. What are you carrying that nobody can see? The way Paul weaponizes his legal status completely changes how you read the trajectory of the early church. It alters how you understand leverage, rights, and what a follower of Jesus is supposed to do with the unearned advantages of the culture they live in. But to feel the weight of what just happened on that stone floor, you have to understand the world outside the barracks. You have to step back into a culture where human life was incredibly cheap, and understand what it actually meant to hold the ultimate passport. In the modern world, we think of passports and border crossings, viewing citizenship as essentially a bureaucratic category. In the first century Roman Empire, citizenship is not a simple nationality. It is a legal force field. To understand the sheer panic of the centurion in the courtyard, you have to understand the brutal mathematics of the ancient world. Out of the estimated 50 to 60 million people living under the shadow of the eagle, roughly 5 million hold actual Roman citizenship. The vast majority of the population, the merchants unloading cargo in Ephesus, the farmers hauling grain in Galatia, the people crowding the noisy, spice-scented markets of Corinth are classified as peregrini. They are subjects. They are foreigners in their own conquered lands, braided with leather, tipped with jagged pieces of sheep bone and lead. The crowd outside the barracks is still screaming for his blood. They pay the crushing taxes. They endure the arbitrary whims of local magistrates. If a peregrinus steps out of line, they can be beaten, tortured, or thrown to the starving beasts in the sand of the arena without a second thought. Their physical bodies belong entirely to the state, but a citizen is fundamentally untouchable. Under the Lex Porcia and the Lex Iulia, a Roman citizen is legally exempt from the cruelest forms of physical punishment. No scourging, no crucifixion. A citizen cannot be bound with leather thongs or tortured before a formal, fair trial, and if they feel they are being railroaded by a corrupt local governor, they hold the ultimate trump card, the right of provocatio, the right to appeal their case directly to the emperor himself. To violate these rights is not a misdemeanor. It is an act of treason against Rome. This status is so exclusive, so deeply coveted, that men willingly spend their entire lives trying to acquire it. Some serve 25 grueling years in the auxiliary legions, surviving brutal campaigns in the cold mud of Germania, just to receive a small, wax-sealed bronze diploma of citizenship upon their honorable discharge. Others hoard staggering amounts of silver. The dust in the air has not even settled from the riot. This is the end of the line for most men in the ancient world, bribing greedy provincial officials to buy their way onto the official registry. And you cannot tell who has it just by looking at them. A wealthy patrician might wear the heavy, bleached wool of a formal Roman toga in the capital, but in the dusty provinces, men like Paul walk around wearing the same rough-spun tunics as everyone else. The protection is entirely invisible. You might look at Paul, a traveling tent maker with hands calloused from cutting and sewing heavy animal hides, and see just another wandering Jewish teacher, until he speaks. The moment those Latin words are spoken, civis Romanus sum, the entire legal apparatus of the empire snaps to attention. It is a linguistic tripwire that shifts the ground beneath a local magistrate's feet. Suddenly, the commander realizes he is no longer dealing with an expendable provincial peasant. He is dealing with Rome itself. Paul possesses this ultimate leverage, completely by birth. He is a Hebrew of Hebrews, a Pharisee trained under the elite Rabbi Gamaliel. Yet he simultaneously holds the highest social capital the secular world has to offer. He walks into the darkest, most violent corners of the Mediterranean holding a silent trump card that can stop an executioner's whip in midair. But the detail that changes everything is exactly when he chooses to pull it out of his pocket. A Roman flogging is not a disciplinary measure. It is an interrogation tactic. It is designed to strip flesh from muscle, to break a man's mind. The temple courtyard erupts. Men tear their clothes. They throw handfuls of dust into the stifling Jerusalem air. They scream for an immediate execution. The Roman commander, Claudius Lysias, watches from the Antonia fortress above. He does not understand the theology. He does not care about the religious nuances. He only understands chaos. He sees a riot forming, and his only job is to crush it before it spreads across the city. He sends his soldiers down the stone stairs. Heavy boots hit the pavement. Iron-rimmed shields push through the frenzied mob. They grab Paul. They drag him up the steps. They do not ask for his defense. They do not hold a hearing. They ask for the whip. The soldiers chain him to the block. The leather straps pull tight against his skin. The bone-tipped flagrum is readied. Then Paul speaks. Is it lawful to flog a Roman citizen who has not been condemned? The centurion freezes. He sprints back up the stairs to find the commander. Claudius Lysias rushes down to the courtyard. He stands over the prisoner. He looks at the bruised, bleeding Jewish rabbi. Tell me, are you a Roman citizen? Yes. Paul says. The commander is skeptical. He looks at the calloused hands. He looks at the torn, blood-stained tunic and extracts a confession before his body completely gives out. The centurion raises his arm. The shadow of the whip falls across the prisoner's back. I had to pay a lot of money for my citizenship. Lysias says, it is a test. It is a subtle interrogation. Lysias bribed his way onto the registry. He assumes this dusty street preacher is bluffing to save his own skin. Paul looks back up from the stone. But I was born a citizen. The panic is absolute. The soldiers who were about to strike him back away immediately. The chains are suddenly a massive liability. The commander realizes the trap he just walked into. He has already broken Roman law simply by binding a citizen without a formal trial. Claudius Lysias is terrified. This is not a lucky escape. It is a calculated deployment. Paul did not waive his citizenship at the temple gates. He did not shout his Latin status to the Jewish mob, because the mob would not have cared. He let the Roman guard rescue him. He let them carry him into the absolute safety of the imperial barracks. He waited until he was completely out of the mob's reach, surrounded by the very men tasked with keeping imperial order. Only then did he drop the card. The empire is not an obstacle. It is an escort. Paul turns his would-be executioners into his personal bodyguards. But the man on the block does not beg. He does not scream. He does not close his eyes and pray for a sudden miracle. The commander cannot release him back to the mob. He cannot flog him. He cannot execute him. He is forced by the heavy hand of Roman law to protect this Jewish preacher at all costs. Over the next few days, Lysias will order an infantry force of 200 soldiers, 70 horsemen, and 200 spearmen, just to move Paul safely out of Jerusalem under the cover of darkness. 470 armed men, all mobilized by the state to protect one tentmaker. Paul is now legally insulated from the people who want him dead. But he does not just use this passport to keep his heart beating. He is about to use it to hijack the entire Roman transit system. But the detail that changes everything is how Paul views the very empire that will eventually execute him. Most modern readers look at the first-century Roman Empire and see nothing but the antagonist of the biblical story. They see the occupying military force, the oppressive shadow hanging over the Mediterranean basin. enforcing their political will with cold, iron, and heavy taxation. They see the brutal regime that crucified Jesus outside the city walls. But Paul's letters and the historical record reveal a much more calculating mindset. He simply turns his head, looks up at the officer, and asks a calm, terrifying question. Is it lawful for you to flog a Roman? Rome is not the villain of Paul's strategy. It is the infrastructure of his mission. Consider the physical reality of the first-century world. The Pax Romana, the ruthless but highly effective peace maintained by the edge of the Roman gladius, means the deep-water ports are suddenly free of pirates. The vast network of tightly fitted, basalt-paved roads, engineered specifically to move heavy infantry and siege engines rapidly across continents, are completely open for foot traffic. A unified currency system means a traveling tent maker can stitch heavy canvas sails in the noisy, spice-scented markets of Corinth, get paid in silver denarii, and buy a loaf of bread months later in Ephesus without losing a single coin to the local money changers. The empire unknowingly built the exact physical pathways needed to carry the message that would ultimately outlast it. So Paul begins to weaponize his legal standing. He uses his citizenship not to avoid suffering, but to legitimize his church plants in the city of Philippi. He actually stays silent about his Roman status while being beaten and thrown into a dark, damp subterranean cell. He only reveals it the next morning, forcing the terrified city magistrates to come personally to his cell and formally apologize. He creates an official public record that effectively protects the new believers in that city from future police harassment. Citizen who has not been condemned? The whip stops in mid-air. The centurion freezes. You can almost feel the air get sucked out of the courtyard. He is playing a massive, multi-continental game of legal chess. Paul understands that as long as the Roman state officially views the Jesus movement as a sect of Judaism, a religio licita, a legally recognized and protected ancient religion, the gospel can travel freely across the empire. His passport is the legal wedge that keeps that door propped wide open. He is actively leveraging a secular, worldly advantage for an eternal kingdom purpose. He has already used his status to escape the mob in the temple. He has already used it to secure a heavily armed military escort out of Jerusalem. But the most audacious move of his entire life, the moment that secures the final leg of his journey, happens when he is standing in a marble courtroom before the Roman governor 2 years later. 2 years pass inside the damp stone walls of a coastal prison in Caesarea. You can smell the sea salt in the air and the rust on the heavy iron chains. Governors change. Felix leaves in disgrace. Porcius Festus arrives. He is a newly appointed Roman politician, desperate to establish order, eager to do a favor for the furious Jewish leadership in Jerusalem. They demand Paul be brought back to the city for trial. They have no intention of holding a trial.